Hello my friends.
Greetings to all Hearthstone adepts.
Today we will discuss the main flaws of Hearthstone, and talk about possible ways to solve them. At the end, as always, we will invite you to take part in several polls.
On our community tab page, we conducted a survey and asked subscribers to rate the current state of the game. Only 5% of players gave Hearthstone 5 stars, and more than 55% gave the game 3 stars or less. Thus, the total satisfaction rate of active fans of the game was only 66%. To be honest, the result of the vote upset us a little. We did not expect such a low rating from the community. It looks like the game really does have a lot of problems.
Daring reporter Dora decided to clarify the situation, and asked our community to describe the main flaws of the game in the comments.
I have carefully analyzed each comment and divided all claims into 5 categories. Let's begin by talking about game balance. A large number of players are extremely unhappy with priest cards, and paladin is also annoying some players. Other players still demand the removal of the demon hunter. For some, the meta is too boring, while for others, it is too varied.
Despite conflicting opinions, all players are right. In our opinion, the state of the metagame is very subjective. As a rule, players are annoyed by different things. The perfect meta for all players simply cannot exist. Even if the meta is balanced, it is not guaranteed that you will enjoy the game.
Imagine an ideal situation. All archetypes have roughly the same win rate, from 48 to 52%. Your progress in ranked play will be very slow, if you have any at all.
Players often talk about balance, but only esports players want to see a truly balanced game. Sometimes it even seems to me that the developers deliberately increase the power of certain cards, because players love imbalanced strategies, yet at the same time they prefer to play against balanced decks. It's hard to explain. I call this the Dr. Boom effect. Many players considered Dr. Boom to be completely unbalanced, but then missed him the most when he rotated out.
Perhaps the situation involving the release of the Demon Hunter confirms this theory. The developers tried to make a class that was slightly stronger than other classes. Demon Hunter was supposed to bring old players back to the game. A new class that is at the bottom of the list does not motivate people to come back. But the developers overdid it, and thus made a mistake.
Developers are always facing a really difficult task. It is important to anticipate all potential strategies and combinations, and at the same time make all classes playable. Moreover, balancing the game has become much more difficult than it was in the first years after its release. The current meta looks very diversified, with a huge number of archetypes in the game, and almost 90 legendary cards are played. Universal cards have almost disappeared from the game, which in turn makes the game varied. Plus, thanks to nerfs, the current meta continues to evolve slowly.
By the way, don't miss our video about the most useful legendary cards.
What about the priest?
The priest has a large number of powerful cards in its arsenal, and some of them are very annoying. Priests can get out of control after the release of a new expansion. Now he is one of the most ineffective classes in the meta game. But at the same time, he is very popular, because his strategies are fun.
The fourth most important issue is aggro. The meta game is packed with aggressive decks.
Aggro decks are always extremely popular. They are usually the simplest and most effective archetypes in the game, but at the same time they can hardly be called interesting.
One of the important reasons for such high popularity of aggro decks is their low cost. Some free-to-play players and newbies prefer uninteresting strategies because they can't afford other decks.
Some time ago I got a message from a subscriber. He suggested creating separate lobbies for aggro and control decks. In other words, control decks will always oppose control strategies, and aggressive decks will play against aggressive ones. But I'm sure that within the framework of these lobbies, there will be a gradual division into more control and more aggro versions of archetypes.
Overall, Hearthstone can't exist without aggressive decks. The game contains hidden rules. Control beats aggro, aggro beats mid-range, mid-range beats control. Therefore, aggro decks are an integral part of Hearthstone. However, this doesn't always work. For example, Face Hunter beats almost everything. Developers should definitely pay attention to this.
I have a theory. I think that the developers intentionally keep the performance of aggressive decks at a slightly higher level. Perhaps they think this has a positive impact on the metagame. Too often aggro decks dominate, and too often control decks cannot handle them.
Okay, what can you say about more serious flaws, such as the third flaw? Randomness has absorbed Hearthstone. RNG has even basically become the win condition for some decks. Just write in the collection the word, random, and see how many cards show up.
In my opinion, the problem of random effects is more complex than it might seem at first glance. Firstly, RNG inflicts significant damage to Hearthstone as an esports discipline. To play effectively, you must first determine the archetype of your opponent, then define all the possible archetype options to know the key cards around which you will have to play. Next, you must build your strategy. This is an incredibly exciting and challenging task for players.
Suppose your opponent is constantly getting additional random cards out of thin air. How can you plan your strategy around this?
The mage has already used 2 fireballs, but maybe he has a few more thanks to random effects.
In this case, your entire well-thought-out strategy is worthless. You just have to hope for your opponent's bad luck.
On the other hand, random effects have become an inalienable feature of Hearthstone, because they are fun.
The developers sacrifice the esports aspect of the game in order to please the wider audience of the game. Just imagine if randomness left Hearthstone completely. The fun moments of Hearthstone plays will disappear as a genre altogether. Will the gameplay become more interesting? I don't know. I often hear opinions that players need vanilla Hearthstone, because earlier Hearthstone was much more interesting and better without RNG effects. But our dreams of Hearthstone without randomness may not be so sweet as we think.
What can you say about the dust system? A huge number of players suffer from the current cost of crafting cards. Perhaps cards should cost less in terms of dust, or should give more dust when you disenchant them. It may be worth reducing crafting cost by 50%.
We spent a lot of time researching the basic element of the Hearthstone economy. In my opinion, the structure of the game's economy is very well thought out. This system works well, and does not need any intervention. Changing the cost of crafting will destroy this system.
Players just want to be able to get the most important cards in a very simple way, which in turn completely ruins the idea of collecting cards and buying packs. Hearthstone's internal economy structure has other ways of customizing it.
How can you comment on the main drawback of Hearthstone? Many players have been playing for 6 years, and most still do not have a complete collection of even the classic cards. The game is too expensive. You have to invest either all your free time or too much money. For the cost of 3 pre-orders, you can buy 4 full-fledged games of the highest class. Even if you choose to pre-order Hearthstone, you will not receive the entire collection of cards.
Time to pay!
This is definitely the main problem. The amount of free resources is the main tool for tuning the game economy.
Despite the assurances of the developers that they are making Hearthstone more and more loyal, there are no significant changes in the economy at all. The new Battle Pass won't solve this problem either. Most likely, the situation will gradually worsen. A non-loyal economy has become the main brake on development. Many cool things cannot be implemented into the game due to the fact that players have too few expensive cards.
As we anticipated, Hearthstone is becoming increasingly difficult to attract new players, which is why Blizzard plans to keep its profits at the expense of loyal fans.
The company has significantly increased the number of offers in the store this year. We received a huge number of different bundles, old card backs, paid participation in Brawlicium, and Book of Heroes, which constantly offers new purchasable hero skins. The game really needs a radical change in its amount of free rewards. But for this, developers will have to risk profits. Blizzard certainly doesn't want to risk it. Developers fear that if you have more resources, you will have less incentive to make a purchase. Therefore, every free pack, gold coin and speck of dust is carefully calculated.
The new economy should allow the company to make money, but at the same time, be much more player-friendly. This is an incredibly difficult task for card games in which cards are the main prize.
Blizzard should be selling cosmetics instead of packs.
Come on, Dora. Hearthstone players don't only want to buy cosmetics. Our surveys clearly demonstrate this. It's a vicious circle. It is impossible to switch to a system of selling only cosmetics, but at the same time, playing in the current economy is becoming more and more difficult.
But we still believe that this problem can be solved. We talked about one solution in our video about new Hearthstone monetization. However, players must be prepared to make some concessions.
There is another alternative to the current system, although most players hate it. Hearthstone could be a subscription game like World of Warcraft, but with completely free expansions. Are you willing to pay $10 monthly for a completely loyal economy and free cosmetic bonuses? We already know the answer in advance, but still, let's conduct a survey.
Also please answer these other questions. Is it worth insulating aggro decks? Should randomness leave the game permanently?
Go to our community tab page and leave your vote, as well as subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new polls and new videos.
Despite its many shortcomings, over the past year, Hearthstone has finally gotten off the ground again.
We got a ton of new content, and more surprises surely await us before the end of the year. We look forward to the release of the new game mode, and are excited for news about the Battle Pass.
Hearthstone is still the most popular card game, and our favorite game as a whole.
As always, we want to express our infinite gratitude to our patrons. Dear friends, your support is incredibly important to us. Thank you very much for continuing to help us.
Alright, that's all for today. Thank you for being with us.
And special thanks to Chris for text editing.
We will meet in new videos.
Good luck.